Aloha, you're listening to the NBA Big Board Podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm with my longtime collaborator, Rafael Barlowe. We've got some big news that we're going to share right after the promo, and we're going to talk NCAA March Madness, NBA Draft, prospects that we like, looking forward to the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight. Got a lot of draft stuff to talk about. Let's roll. All right, he's Rafael Barlowe. I'm Chad Ford with the NBA Big Board Podcast. And Rafael, let's kick it off with the big news to start the podcast. I'm retiring. You're taking over both this Big Board podcast that you're listening to right now, as well as our NBA Big Board newsletter. You can go over to NBABigBoard.com. Rafael's been working with me for a while, so I want to start by saying congratulations. It's awesome to have you not just full time now, but taking over. And I'll start by just saying that I have been contemplating this for a little bit, but actually it's been more recently. And I thought about when I did it, man, who would I really love to take over? And I'd really wanted to work with Rafael, and we had actually started working together in January. And I'd hoped that would be something that could last for a while. But when I finally decided, look, it's time for me to retire, some health issues, some family things that I want to spend more time at, and just some professional stuff. I hope a lot of our listeners know that I do conflict resolution and have been busy in that field as well. It's actually a really busy time for that right now. That it was time for me to step down. I couldn't think of a better person than Rafael. He's connected. He's an amazing scout, an amazing person. I think he fits with the tone of what I like to do with the podcast and on the site. And so, Rafael, thank you.
No, thank you. And I've been sharing this story often over the last 4 days, and I think it's just starting to hit me now. And I know you probably don't want to hear me praise you for the next 4 or 5 minutes, but thank you so much for the opportunity. When you reached out to me, I was kind of like in shock, in a sense, like, you've done so much for other people. You're a pioneer in this space. And then out of all the people, you chose me. And as I mentioned in the video, it's a little bit of pressure. I mean, I'm up for the challenge, but at the same time, I have big shoes to fill. And, congratulations to you on such a long, great career. And I'm looking forward to just seeing what you do next in your next stage in life. But again, just thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for, I guess in basketball terms, throwing me an alley-oop, and now I gotta score.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's interesting that it has been a long career, and often me juggling multiple things at the same time. It started with an internet company that I started called sportstalk.com with a friend of mine, Jason Peary. Sold to ESPN, many years at ESPN before leaving and taking a full-time teaching job in Hawaii, but then coming back and then spending another decade doing the draft for them, and then the NBA Big Board podcast with the Locked On, and then ultimately this newsletter. And I feel good. I feel like a couple of decades at this, I've had the chance. I feel like there's a lot of great young talent out there on Twitter right now doing the draft that are going to take it to another level. You're right there at the top for me. And I know you'll do a great job. And I'll make sure this won't be my last podcast. I'll have a couple more, but maybe on the last one, I'll share some of my favorite draft stories that I've just been around over the last the last couple of decades. I've been sort of contemplating that and mulling that over the last week or so after finally decided it was time to hang it up. And we'll do some sort of retrospective at the end.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That's something that, I mean, I haven't mentioned it to you, but I was thinking either your last or my first podcast. I want to hear some of your crazy stories, because this is my first year traveling abroad, like full time as a scout. And it's not as glamorous as it may seem. The small hotel rooms, the travel, trying to get to these random small cities in Europe. It's not as glamorous as it may seem, but it's challenging. And just this 1 year, not even a full year that I've been doing it, and just trying to juggle that and the podcast and the big board, it's really work. But I always say that there's a lot harder ways to make a living than watching basketball. So I am so grateful and thankful for this opportunity.
It is a lot of work, and you're putting in the grind. I've put in the grind for a long time. It's fun work though, right? There's work that's painful work, and there's work that's fun work, and it's absolutely fun work. And like you said, there's so many things that most people would die to be able to do what we get to do on a daily basis. And I recognize how lucky and blessed I've been, and how many people have helped me along the way. And that's probably enough. To be at the end of the day, people are in this podcast because they're like, hey, what's going on with the draft right now? And so I want to just go ahead and pivot to the draft. We had great weekend in March Madness. Always my favorite, man, the opening weekend, because there's so many games. There's so many upsets. My bracket is like devastated. It's maybe may be the worst bracket I've ever produced in the history of brackets for me. It's bad. Every upset I picked wrong. Every team that I thought was going to go deep wrong. I have Gonzaga left, and Purdue is left in my they could meet in the Final Four, but that's it. I guess Arizona's left. I guess I got 3 of my 4 left.
Yeah,
but
you're in good shape. You might be in the top percentile there.
Maybe I'll end up doing better in the Sweet 16 in March 8. I know you had Iowa in the finals, so that's
I had Iowa
and I had Auburn in the finals, and they're done.
Yeah, what's even crazier is I had just uploaded a podcast. Can Keegan Murray have a Carmelo Anthony type run? I just thought, like, with his dominant performance, he was the type of guy that could carry a team. And within 4 hours of uploading that podcast, it was kind of obsolete in the sense. But I don't know. I haven't looked at mine since Iowa lost. I actually was able to like enjoy the weekend and not worry about my bracket.
Yeah.
But with all the upsets, I actually might be in a decent spot, because I know, like, I was in a bracket with a lot of Baylor alums. So I know they all had Baylor going to the national championship. So I might be in good position. I'm going to have to check it out later on. But after Iowa lost and Kentucky lost, I was just like, I don't have a shot at winning. So no need to even look at it. Let me just go ahead and enjoy this from a fan perspective.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, none of our brackets are going to be that great. And I've never been good at this, by the way, never been good at predicting the tournament. And I used to pick Kansas every year, and then they broke my heart. And then the year that I didn't pick them, they won the national championship. So from now on, I never pick Kansas, thinking that maybe somehow I'll jinx them. And they actually, their bracket looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Coming into the Final Four right now, I'm a bit happy for them. We'll see, because as we said, Baylor didn't think they were going to get upset, and Iowa didn't think they were going to get upset. So you never know. So let's start with the big matchup, which was Jalen Duren, Chet Holmgren. I think everybody wanted to see that. The number one guy ranked in his high school class versus the other number one guy ranked in his high school class before he reclassified. Both centers, we knew they were going to guard each other. Duren had foul trouble, but we definitely got to see them head to head in this matchup. And neither guy like their best game. That fits defensively. And so, together that's, really difficult, but I'm curious, like, what you saw from those 2 guys in their matchup, and what you think about their draft stock based of seeing maybe the 2 top big men in this draft go head to head.
I don't think that you left with a clear-cut answer on either prospect. And I like to go on Twitter sometimes and just see what other people are thinking. And I felt like when I typed in Chet's name or Duren's name, it was so divided. If you had questions about Chet, then you are justified in saying, see, he struggles with physicality. He can't guard guys that are stronger than him. And then if you are a big pro Chet guy, you talk about how he stood up to Memphis trying to attack him early. He had 4 blocks. And then same thing with Duren. If you felt like, I like this guy's potential, the youngest guy in the draft, he showed some flashes there. And if you feel like he's still raw, I mean, I just feel like you got whatever you were looking for. I don't think either guy came out as like improving their stock. I will say Chet showed his toughness. I actually like the fact that Penny went at him early. It was like they were running plays for Duren, which is kind of weird to me because I'm a guy that you just dump the ball to in a post and say, "Hey, go get me buckets," because he's looking to power and dunk everything. But Chet showed that his length can affect offensive players no matter how wide and how strong they are. He just finds a way to block shots, and it's like he's blocking them flat-footed. And then with Duren, I felt like, maybe if he had a little bit of a soft touch finish package around the rim instead of trying to power up and dunk everything, he could have been a little bit more effective. But I think both guys showed some flashes. I mean, some people are gonna remember the dunk where Duren just dunked on Chet and Chet got called for a flopping. I think flopping was probably the best decision he would have made, because if he would have jumped, he probably would have got dunked through. But overall, I thought it was a very good and entertaining game from a fan perspective and even from a draft perspective.
Yeah, one of the things that I think I came away from this, I feel better about Chet defensively after watching his ability to guard Duren. I felt less good about him offensively. Watching him play against Memphis's athletes, who they have one of the more athletic teams in college basketball, and are more going to look like an NBA team that Holmgren may play against every night. His ability that we've seen all season for him to attack a little bit off the dribble, to get to spots on the floor or whatever, that he wasn't having any of that with Memphis, and it made him look a step slow, where you didn't necessarily see that in the WCC. And so, I came away kind of with this mixed feeling with him. Okay, I'm feeling. I saw the toughness. I saw him face, great athletes, and he's never going to back down. He's always active. He's constantly moving. He feels the game and has a good sense of the game. But I wonder what he's going to be offensively in the NBA when you see some of the stuff that he can clearly do, but maybe doesn't have the quickness and athleticism to do it well at the NBA level. I think that's going to be the question mark for me, which opens the door, right, for a potential Elite Eight matchup with Paolo Banchero of Duke, who continues to show the entire bag offensively.
Yeah. Well, when I look at Chet's stats, and I did a behind the numbers video on him a few weeks back, he gets a good chunk of his points in transition as like the transition trailer or dribbling into transition three-pointers at the top of the key. And then he gets a few of his points from offensive rebounds. So with Memphis's athletes and physical players, he wasn't able to get those 2 to 3 offensive rebound putbacks that he normally gets. And then he missed all 3 of his three-point attempts. I don't remember if all of them were in transition, but once you take those away from him, he has to be set up for his points. You have to, give him a lob. And I think that was a little bit concerning for me, because he didn't have any advantages on the offensive end. But also you can say maybe he's deferred, as Drew Timme is clearly their best player. But I also think that practice probably has made him a better defender, just because, Drew has so many up fakes, pivots, and so on. And I think with Chet, by him being probably patient guarding Timme, just using his length, it makes it much easier to guard like a Jalen Duren, who's not going to have as many counters. And so, like I said earlier, I think both showed some good flashes, but there are some things that kind of stood out that make me a little bit concerning.
Yeah. So I don't, at the end of the day, it's interesting to me. I kind of came away from the game saying, kind of 50-50,
Yeah.
right? Like, I don't necessarily think this helped the stock, but I don't think it hurt it either.
Right.
But it has been interesting just talking to a few NBA guys that it seems to have spooked them a little bit more than I thought it would. Duren as well, which again I think both of them maybe spooked NBA guys a little bit more than I thought. Where I kind of came away with this as it's a wash. And then you got Banchero. So now let's face it. Duke has to get by Texas Tech. That's no easy feat, especially the way Duke's been playing lately. I'm not totally confident that they get to that Elite Eight matchup. Gonzaga has also struggled a little bit, and they're going to have to get past Arkansas. And this Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren matchup certainly seems like it could be an interesting one as well. But I want to think about Banchero and talk about Banchero for a minute. It may not happen, but we did get to see them once in November play each other. They played each other in high school, but these two guys came into the season. They're the number one guys in the draft. They're going to be the guys that are most likely to be number one. Jabari Smith Jr. and to a lesser extent Jaden Ivey have crashed that conversation a bit. You've been on Team Banchero all year. Yeah. And I haven't been. I think he's a good player. I think he's a top 4 pick, but this is an area where you and I have disagreed. Man, it was tough for me because I thought Banchero looked really good this weekend. He looked the part more than anybody of the number 1 pick in the draft. And if Duke and Gonzaga match back up in the Elite Eight again, I kind of have a feeling that this could be Banchero's game.
Well, I've been biased all year, so I'm not shocked because I feel like out of the 3 bigs, he's the one guy that I feel the most comfortable with, that I can give him the ball and he's going to either get me a bucket, draw a foul, create a look for someone else, or at least get a good shot. And so I think that, if the game is on the line, I feel more comfortable with Banchero having the ball. Now, Chet could just be deferring because, it is in a sense Drew Timmy's team, so maybe he won't have that same opportunity. But I felt like he kind of shied away from the ball as the game got close. And then with Banchero, he made big plays down the stretch on both ends of the floor. You're starting to see a little bit of the passing that I've been praising all year. Yeah. I think he had 4 assists, but I'd say he could have had 6. I know there was one where Kills kind of missed the layup, but got the offensive rebound, put it back. And I think there was one that Mark Williams kind of bobbled. But I like him as an interior passer. He has good chemistry with Mark Williams. And I just think that he is this weapon that you can give the ball to in the post. He can knock down threes. Well, he's not the most consistent, but he shot the ball well from 3. And then the passing just opens everything up for Duke. So I'm happy because I've been pushing this Banchero bandwagon. So if he would have had a bad game, I know social media on Twitter would have my mentions would have been in shambles because either you like Duke or you hate Duke, and so it's kind of it's tough.
It's interesting because I also think Banchero's in a unique situation with 4 other guys that probably would be the man on most NCAA Division I basketball teams, like the top guy, the top scorer, the best player on the team. And so there is always this, who's going to step up every night, who's going to get the ball, whether that's Wendell Moore or Trevor Keels or AJ Griffin. And then he's also playing with another big in Mark Williams. And one of the interesting things is, one of the things that you love about the Gonzaga Duke matchup is they're essentially deploying 2 college centers out there. Both teams are. And so, whether it's Mark Williams versus Chet or whether it's, Timmy versus Banchero or vice versa. It's going to be really interesting to see going forward. I'm still of the camp, even though Banchero's persuading me right now. And I think he's a justifiable number 1 pick in the draft. I do. So this is not hate. This is sort of like Cade Cunningham territory I'm getting in trouble with. Please, I hope the Pistons don't draft Banchero or they're going to go crazy over this again. But I just don't know. I'm at that sort of same spot where I was stuck with Cade. Cade was clearly the most skilled, most talented guy in the draft. That was clear. I think Banchero probably fit, especially offensively. Banchero sort of fits that bill last year. But Mobley and Barnes just did stuff athletically that Cade just doesn't do. And so to me, their ceilings go higher and they're more intriguing as two-way players, and their size and athletic gifts give them the edge in my book. And I feel the same way this year about Jabari Smith. I feel that way about Jaden Ivey. I feel that way even to a certain extent about Chet. And so, this is going to be one of these cases where I think Banchero probably comes in, most likely, going to put up big points the same way Cade's going to put up. But can he have that two-way impact? And is his ceiling as high as those other guys? I think that's the sort of question. Does Banchero ever become a superstar in the NBA? I have a hard time seeing that. Making multiple all-star teams, I can see that. Being a superstar in the league, like, maybe his career is like Al Horford or Julius Randle, something, sort of like that. Like, I could see that for sure. But I just see that higher ceiling for Jabari. Bigger risk, big risk with Chet Holmgren, in my opinion. Somewhat of a risk with Jaden Ivey as well. But I just see their ceilings as higher.
You know what? I had some of the same concerns about Jason Tatum. I guess
okay,
4
fair
years ago. Thought that
me too, actually.
He could score, but I felt like he took a lot of tough contested shots, and he lived making these ball-stopping, ISO contested mid-range pull-ups. And I didn't think that. I think Banchero's a better passer than Tatum is, but I was wrong about Tatum. Injuries have played a role, but I was all in on Markelle Fultz as the better player. And it was just something about Tatum's shot selection that I didn't like. And I'm starting to think that a lot of people are having similar concerns about Banchero's that they had about Tatum. So if Banchero ends up being like Tatum, but a better passing Tatum, then I think that's a justifiable number one pick.
That's actually a great call. I had very similar concerns about Tatum, and I was just wrong on him. I was also team Markelle Fultz all the way. And again, there's some weird stuff happening with Markelle Fultz. You still see flashes of Markelle Fultz do stuff, and it's just wow. But Jason Tatum, top 10 player in the NBA, and I was just wrong about him. Let's talk about our new sponsor, NBA Top Shot, the official licensed NFT of the NBA. Connect with a community of hundreds of thousands of NBA fans as a natural progression of fantasy sports, a way to upgrade your experience as an NBA fan. This is what the future of being an NBA fan looks like. It's part trading cards. Every moment of Top Shot originates in a pack. Unlike trading cards, there aren't still images on cardboard. They're officially licensed NFTs of the greatest moments from NBA history. Akin to the stock market for the NBA, every day millions of dollars worth of NFTs are traded back and forth between tens of thousands of NBA fans around the world. Fantasy sports is that every night you have the ability to capitalize on the market if you're able to predict top performers. And it's sort of like an airline loyalty program for the NBA. They actually flew collectors out to Game 5 of the NBA Finals based on having Suns moments. They flew collectors out to the NBA Draft based on having rookie moments. They got to have dinner with first-round picks the night before they were drafted. They got to play basketball with Obi Toppin and Tyrese Halliburton. Really cool stuff. Investors include Michael Jordan, Kevin Durant, not to mention Will Smith. There's also a lot of NBA players in the community like Tyrese Halliburton, Cole Anthony, and Harrison Barnes. And I hear people ask all the time, ask the same question, like, why would I buy a highlight when I can watch it on YouTube for free? It's not just about watching a highlight. It's about having ownership stake in something that's akin to a stock market for the NBA's greatest highlights. And if you were to tell someone in 1916 that your piece of cardboard with Babe Ruth's face on it would be worth millions one day, my dad had a Mickey Mantle card and he gave it away and I could have killed him later. Everyone would think you're crazy. This is the opening tip of a digital age. And the NBA's officially licensed NFT will be a big part of that digital age. Imagine when the NFTs are even mainstream on social media, you'll be able to flex what you own around the world instantly. No binders or shoeboxes. And if you sign up for Top Shot today, the best way to start is by getting yourself a starter pack. You can pull an NFT of a superstar like LeBron or KD, or star rookies like Cade Cunningham or Evan Mobley for $9. And if you don't pull your favorite player from the starter pack, you can snag moments from the marketplace that appeal to you. That's our new NBA sponsor, Top Shot. All right. Interesting Top Shot is.
My dad had a Roberto Clemente card that we went to his mom's house looking for. We never found it. Somebody has it. And it's worth a pretty penny.
Okay. We talked about those guys on NBABigBoard.com right now. You have a piece about Jaden Ivey asking the question, what's the case for Jaden Ivey being the number one pick in the draft? You were really impressed with his NCAA tournament performance. Purdue also looks like they've got a pretty interesting pathway to getting to the Final Four here, which is great news for Ivey to showcase his stuff. What do you like about Jaden Ivey, and what does he still need to show for you to be seriously in consideration for the number one pick? Because I know you've resisted that. I've been more in on Jaden Ivey should be in the mix. I know you've resisted that a little bit, but at least according to your piece, you can go read the whole thing, including a video breakdown from Rafael of Jaden Ivey's game over at NBABigBoard.com. What is it that's appealing to you?
Well, we all knew that he was just a freak athlete, the competitive fire, all of that. But it's the and so props to you for. I think back in like November, you were saying that he has an outside shot, and I think he has a chance. I don't know if there's anything that he can actually show that will push him ahead. I just think that if Purdue has a deep tournament run, and Jabari's already out, and if Chet doesn't, if Chet looks like he did in the first round, then I think that kind of cements him as the number one pick. But I think Ivey just has an opportunity to really make a name for himself in a sense as the top pick, because he'll have the ball in his hands a lot more. He's going to make some electrifying plays. He's going to will his team to victory. And I was really, really impressed with the dagger against Texas. The knock on Ivey is he's not a great shooter, or maybe he needs to work on his shooting off the dribble. But with the team only up by 3, a minute left in the game, he wanted the ball, cleared out, shot a tough step back, which he got the space needed on his step back because you have to respect his speed in his first step. But he was calm, and how he just drained that step back 3. I like the fact that he wanted the ball when the game was on the line in a sense. And, I've said it before, the success of Ja Morant has to make you wonder, like, all right, if Ivey can be maybe not the playmaker as Morant, but if he can have that type of impact, then that's number one pick worthy. So I think maybe in a sense that we've all kind of gave the, not saying that Chet and Jabari and Paolo aren't deserving of it, but I think we've all kind of assumed that those 3 guys are going to battle out for the number one spot, and Ivey has an opportunity to say, like, hey, I'm actually the best college basketball player in the nation right now.
Yeah, to me, and this is just to me, if I'm a general manager and I don't have a pressing need that maybe shifts the needle just a little bit, the 2 main guys that I'm looking at with the number one pick are Jabari Smith and Jaden Ivey. I see the highest ceiling for both of those players, and I lean Jabari Smith because of his size and his shooting and his shot making ability. I'm confident in the NBA he's going to be a lights out 3-point shooter. I think he's the best shooter in the draft, frankly. And at 6'10", that's awesome. But what Ivey does, like, I think Ja Morant is right. There's that electricity to the way that he plays the game. Also, this aggressiveness that he plays to the game. There's a mindset there. He's a killer. He wants to get downhill. And one of the reasons I think that I was early on him, I talked to scouts, and scouts were telling me this, is there's just like, you have to imagine Jaden Ivey in NBA space.
Yeah.
Not on the team of Purdue that loves to run things through the post, whether that's to Travion Williams or Zach Edey or what have you. Like, you have to imagine him in NBA space where he has more ability to do the things that he does. He's going to be unguardable in the NBA in ways that he can be more guardable in college basketball player because of the way that there's not the same spacing that there is in the NBA. And that was sort of the question mark when a scout said that to me. And this is the cool thing about the draft is people say, well, why isn't Hunter Dickinson in your top 10 or Drew Timme in your top 10? These guys are awesome. They're putting up huge games. That it's actually Drew Timme, not Chet Holmgren, who's carrying the team, or Hunter Dickinson or whatever. And the answer is, like, in college, that's right. Same with Luka Garza last year. Like, they're incredibly valuable players in college basketball. They're good players. They're great. When they get to the NBA defensively, they are going to get roasted every night. They're going to be virtually unplayable at the next level because they just require bigs to be able to guard in space and to guard on the perimeter and move their feet well. And the guys can't do it. They get roasted at the college level, but there's enough other stuff that they bring to the table. And you have to project the other way as well with somebody like Jaden Ivey. Like, what will he be able to do in the way the NBA plays that he isn't able to do because of college basketball and especially sort of the system that he plays in it at Purdue? And that's when I start getting really excited about Jaden Ivey and saying we haven't really seen Jaden Ivey unleashed, a little bit like we didn't get Scotty Barnes unleashed at Florida State. He played a very limited type role that Leonard Hamilton wanted him to. And then all of a sudden he gets to the Raptors. You're like, well, I didn't know Scotty Barnes could do this. Or, oh my God, Scotty Barnes got a 30-point game. Who would have thought Scotty Barnes was going to have a 30-point game, in the NBA? And it's just a different game. So that's the argument for Jaden Ivey. And the matchup that I'm looking forward to, I don't know what you think. Again, they have to get to the Elite Eight, but if Purdue beats St. Peter's and UCLA beats North Carolina, to me, the second best draft matchup after a Duke Gonzaga will be a Purdue UCLA. And Jaime Jaquez Jr. is a guy that I think is underrated, tough guy. And I wonder if he'll get some reps on Jaden Ivey to try to slow him down.
Well, I think he's dealing with like an ankle injury. So
he is. So there's a question mark. Yeah.
You want to guard with a tender ankle.
Except he's so tough. Good point.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that will be a very good game. It could be a high-scoring game, even though when you think of high-scoring, you don't think of like Big Ten teams. But you're right. I mean, I imagine Ivey in space. Ivey without, Edie or Trevion Williams, who aren't necessarily floor spacers. And so I think that's why he has a chance. And that's why I feel like, everyone was so set, myself included, on these three bigs as the number one pick. I think if you came into the season and you didn't have like an idea, if you just didn't know any names and you just watched college basketball and didn't, know about anybody, then I think maybe Ivey could be the number one pick. And I think we all have a tendency to have our guys who we like at the top of the season coming into the season. And if they, maintain what we thought, then we're going to keep them at that particular spot. And so I don't think Ivey has been outside of the top 4 on anybody's big boards or mocks. But like you say, you were on it in November. He has a better shot than a lot of people actually think. And I feel like a strong tournament run could actually make people really realize that, okay, maybe even though bigs are kind of like coming back in style in the NBA, I still think it's a perimeter-oriented game. And he is, in my opinion, by far the best perimeter player in this class.
Yeah. Just a final word on Jabari Smith, who had one of the worst games of his career, 3 for 16 in that loss. I don't think this is going to affect his draft stock at all. One shooters have nights like that. Steph Curry has nights like this. The record is clear. He can really shoot the basketball. One thing I'll actually say that actually encouraged me about Jabari Smith was that rebounding, defense, passing, like he stepped up all those other parts of his game when his shot wasn't falling. And I think some of the question that scouts have had is, what else is he going to do to impact winning when his shot's not falling? And while I do have concerns about him finishing at the rim, though he had maybe the dunk of the tournament. So, he can finish at the rim, but, some questions about his ability to create his own shot off the bounce and what have you. He needs to tighten up his handle or whatever. He really competed in that game, even though it was a blowout loss, and he tried to do other things. And so I don't actually walk away discouraged at all about Jabari Smith. Cade Cunningham wasn't good in the tournament. Franz Wagner had a terrible NCAA tournament. Scotty Barnes didn't do much in the NCAA tournament either, and it's going to be okay.
Yeah, the one concern I have about him is I don't know if he can generate easy looks on his own as far as creating. It seems like he has maybe a 2-dribble limit, and he needs to be set up. And then, a lot of people are blaming Auburn's guards. It's saying like, maybe if he had a different guard play, he'd be able to get a lot more easier looks. And so I think like once he gets to the NBA, if like, let's say he goes to Detroit and he has Cade as his teammate, and even Killian, for example, Killian's a really good passer, then that could really case his shooting even more, because he did make, in my opinion, a lot of tough contested threes this season. So with a NBA point guard, you never know, that percentage could even he might even shoot 40%, which is a long shot, but as a rookie from three, I mean, that's how good of a shooter he is. My concern is,
I would love him in Detroit, by the way.
yeah,
That's where I want to see Jabari Smith play.
That would be a pretty good fit. In my opinion, this is just my opinion. I think he needs to, in order for him to, I feel like maximize his potential, he may need to play a little bit like Dirk. Early in Dirk's career, he was all outside in, but then as he got stronger, it became inside out, and he became more of a weapon. And I would like to see Jabari with the same trajectory as he gets stronger, kind of start off the game in the post, kind of establish himself there, and then work his way out or come back in. And if he can combine that, because I think he has all the physical tools, he has the high arcing shot that's going to be tough to block in the low post. If he can add that to his game, then the sky's definitely the limit for him.
Okay, let's talk about Built Bar. Built Bar has a new product. They're called Puffs. And if you haven't been missing out, they're amazing. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy. They're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar. They're a treat. And they're covered in 100% real chocolate. Puffs are a fan favorite with incredible flavors like yummy cinnamony churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. So good. These are going to be your new favorites. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Yes, Puffs included 100% real chocolate, low calorie, high protein. Replace your candy bars with these. They are better. Typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. Go to Built.com, scroll down to the macros chart. You'll be blown away. High protein, low cal, high fiber, low carb. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar where usually you have around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, dozens of net carbs, mint brownie, coconut almond, and new for this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They're all delicious, and new flavors are coming all the time. At Built, they are all about taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. I don't know how they do it, but they pull it off every time. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCK15, get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. Okay, let's talk about Arizona. They're going to match up against Houston in the Sweet 16. I think that's going to be actually really tough. They got by the skin of their teeth in the round to get to the Sweet 16. Ben Mathurin, I thought, had the performance of the tournament so far there. And I've been a little bit of a Ben Mathurin skeptic. Not in that I think he shouldn't be a lottery pick, but when guys are talking about 5, 6, 7, I didn't see the ability for him to go create his shot enough to get there. I thought he's going to be straight 3-and-D, shoot the three, defensively can defend multiple positions, some straight line drives, good in transition. But he always seemed to kind of get himself in trouble when he started to try to get more creative or try to create for himself. He took over the end of that Arizona game, 11 of their last 15 points, did it with threes, offensive rebounds, dunks. Just his will to win was incredible. The toughness was there. He was creating for himself off the bounce. I thought it was a signature performance, and I'm not sure anybody helped himself more. I mean, look, he's already in the lottery, but I think if skeptics like me, now maybe you argue after those 4 guys are off the board, can Ben Mathurin do that, especially if he leads Arizona to a championship and we see repeat performances like this? If it's a one-off, maybe not. But if he does this and they end up being national champions or get to the Final Four, I could definitely see that buzz over maybe like an AJ Griffin, for example, or Johnny Davis or Jalen Duren or whatever. I could see the push for Ben Mathurin at 5.
Yes, I agree 100%. One of my scouting reports on Mathurin, I saw the potential as a shooter, and it was weird because when I looked at his numbers, he got to the free throw line a decent amount of times, but it was all off hustle and energy plays. He'll get fouled going for offensive rebound or he'll get fouled cutting. But the knock that I had on him was I thought man, this guy has all the physical tools to be a 3-and-D wing, but if he can just add some creativity off the dribble and score, putting the ball on the floor, then he is a top 5 pick. Now, can he sustain what he did against TCU? That's up in the air. But if he can add that to his game, and he's someone that I look at I would love to see him work with a Drew Hanlon, the trainer that has worked with
Yeah.
Wiggins and Tatum and those guys. Even like Jalen Brown. Jalen Brown wasn't a shot creator his freshman year at Cal. He had all these tools that you had to figure out. If he puts it together, he's going to be something special. And so when I look at Mathurin, if I'm a general manager of a team, I'm saying, all right, we know he can, at the minimum, be a 3-and-D transition finisher athlete. But if he can get some offensive creativity, he's definitely a top 5 pick. And so I'd have to, wonder if my training staff or if he has this work ethic that he can add that to his game, I may take him over AJ Griffin just because, the health concerns and the medicals, but he definitely helped himself. I mean, he may not have moved up a bunch of spots because he didn't have many spots to move up, but I think that he showed that he has more to his game than he's been able to, or than he's shown.
Well, Christian Koloko, also big performance. Dillon Terry, another guy that I'm really interested in. All these guys, believe it or not, I think even Terry could end up in the first round of this draft. 6'7", 7-foot wingspan guy who's only had a couple of turnovers in his last 3 games. Not a great offensive player from a scoring standpoint, but really intriguing for his size. And Koloko, I think it was 12 for 13 for 14 from the field in that game. He did get roasted a little bit defensively. He doesn't play well against strength and muscle in the paint. But Arizona's maybe a more loaded NBA draft team than I suspected coming into this season now for them. And I think that I think out of that region, Kansas brings some guys to the tables too, man. I really hoping we'll get to see a Kansas Arizona matchup in the Final Four.
Yeah. On one hand, you have guys that could be in the first round. 2 of them had just crazy performances, but they still needed every ounce of that to beat TCU. So that's something that I'm kind of, does that help Mike Miles? Even though he didn't have like the greatest game, but Mike Miles kind of wills TCU. He does everything that, he makes them go. But overall, like I said, I think that Mathurin maybe is 5 to 7 range now. And Koloko, some people say that he may have even had the best games because, how often do you go 12 of 13 from the floor? And it's not like it doesn't get all the attention. But it'll be interesting to see if how he handles physicality, because Houston is they're an athletic team. They're a little older team, but we'll see how that matchup goes for him.
You actually have a sleeper out of Houston. Your sleeper for the week, and I think you're the first draft guy that I've heard mention him as a draft prospect. So for fans kind of watching that Houston Arizona matchup, who do you like?
I like Kyler Edwards, and I live in the Dallas area, so I've kind of seen his development over the years. But he's 6'4", and I think he can defend multiple positions. He's strong, and I had a chance to watch him live at the AAC tournament last weekend, or maybe it was the weekend before last. And I just saw how he was able to get to the paint and make reads and dump offs, and he's not turning the ball over. The big question is his shooting. If you look at the raw numbers, they're not good. They're in the 30s from field goal percentage to 3-point shooting percentage. And then he's shooting like 7 attempts a game from 3, despite shooting maybe like 31 or 32%. But what gives me hope is that his junior year, he shot 41% from 3 on 4.5 attempts per game. So maybe, and then I think he shot 40% freshman year at Tech. So he's had like 2 years in the 40s and 2 years, I want to say mid-30s or lower. But if he can knock down open shots, I think he ends up becoming like this weapon that can play multiple positions in the NBA because he has the strength to defend up, and then he has the passing instincts. He can play on or off the ball if the shot is falling. A sneaky pick. I don't know if he gets drafted, but I think that he could be one of these guys that later on down the line makes his way into the NBA after going the G League route and just kind of developing. But he is a sleeper that I don't think many people are talking about. And I probably would not have really noticed him until I went and watched him play live in the AAC tournament.
You like Taze more at all as well? I know he's like 400 years old, so that's obviously one of the things that knocks against him. But it feels like if he could shoot, he's got a place in the NBA.
Yeah, but I think he's had like multiple injuries that could probably like red flag him. But yeah, he's a freak athlete.
Yeah. Look, he's not a guy I think he'll go undrafted, but a guy that ends up in a summer league, maybe becomes a two-way G League call up down the road. Just the sort of guy that like I would keep my eye on down the road.
You know who my guy was that's like that? Jonathan Williams from Memphis. Even though he's 25 years old, so you kind of expect him to dominate, but he has the motor and just kind of like long, wiry, athletic, and he rebounds. He's someone that he's kind of like my guy that I don't know if he's an NBA player, but I kind of fell in love with watching him play.
Yeah. He's the guy you want on your summer league roster, not necessarily to use a draft pick on, but I want him on that summer league roster.
Yep.
All right. Well, he's Rafael Barlowe, and really appreciate all the insight, understanding about the draft. Looking forward, we'll break down everybody on Monday. The guys we thought helped their stock, guys that we thought hurt their stock. Go over to NBABigBoard.com, subscribe today, get everything. And looking forward to another great week of college basketball weekend, and we'll be back next week, like breaking down our Final Four guys and projecting forward in the draft. We'll listen to Chad Ford's NBA Big Board on the Locked On Podcast Network. Aloha.